Welcome my channel, the Canine Code. You said it this morning, maybe yesterday, probably 100 times this month. One word that slipped out when your dog did something you didn't like, something inconvenient, something that disrupted your moment. You thought it was harmless, just a word. But that single word is quietly dismantling the trust your dog has spent their entire life trying to build with you. Subscribe to the channel because what you're about to learn will change the way you speak to your dog forever. Number 1. The word you don't even notice anymore. The word is no. And before you dismiss this as oversimplified advice, understand that behavioral scientists studying canine cognition have found something disturbing about how dogs process this particular sound when it becomes your default response to their behavior. Research from animal behavior labs shows that dogs don't hear and know the way we think they do. When you say no to your dog jumping on the couch, no to them barking at the door, no to them sniffing too long on a walk, no to them approaching your dinner plate, your dog's brain doesn't register a simple correction. What happens instead is a cascading neurological response that behavioral ethologists describe as chronic uncertainty stress. Your dog's amygdala, the fear and emotion center of their brain, lights up not because they understand the specific behavior you're rejecting, but because they can't decode what you actually want. The sound no carries emotional weight. Your frustration bleeds through in your tone, but it provides zero information about what they should do instead. Studies tracking cortisol levels in dogs exposed to frequent non-specific corrections show sustained elevation, the biological marker of an animal living in a state of confusion about how to please their human. Your dog isn't learning boundaries when you say no. They're learning that their human is unpredictable, that their best guesses at connection are randomly punished, and that the world with you in it is harder to navigate than it should be. Number 2. What your dog hears when you say no. When your dog's ears detect that sharp no sound, their auditory cortex processes it alongside every other no you've ever said. And here's what researchers have discovered that most owners never realize. Dogs can distinguish between approximately 160 words when trained specifically, but no doesn't function like other words in their vocabulary because it's attached to dozens of completely unrelated behaviors. You say no when they're doing something dangerous, something annoying, something perfectly natural, and something they did yesterday that you allowed. Canine cognition studies using fMRI imaging show that dogs develop a generalized anxiety response to correction words that lack behavioral specificity, meaning your dog's brain starts treating no as ambient threat noise rather than useful communication. The word becomes white noise that signals your displeasure without offering a path to your approval. What makes this particularly damaging is how it conflicts with your dog's fundamental drive, which isn't to disobey you, but to figure out how to be closer to you. Research on dog social cognition reveals that domestic dogs have evolved to read human emotional states with precision that exceeds even chimpanzees, our closest genetic relatives. Your dog is scanning your face, your body tension, your voice pitch, trying desperately to decode what you want. When no is your primary feedback, you're essentially speaking in a language that translates to you're wrong without ever saying this is right. And that gap between what your dog needs to know and what you're telling them creates a relationship based on avoidance rather than understanding. Number 3. The trust equation. Your dog is quietly calculating every interaction with your dog deposits into or withdraws from what animal behaviorists call the trust account, a concept based on decades of research into how dogs form secure attachments with humans. When you give your dog clear information, when they can predict that certain behaviors lead to certain outcomes, when they can trust that you'll help them navigate confusing situations, deposits go in. When you respond with no to behaviors they don't understand or wrong, when your corrections feel random because the same action gets different responses depending on your mood, when they can't figure out the pattern that makes you happy, withdrawals go out. Studies on canine learning theory show that dogs thrive on what's called errorless learning, where they're set up to succeed and then rewarded, building confidence through predictable cause and effect. The opposite of this, which researchers term learned helplessness, happens when an animal tries multiple strategies to solve a problem and discovers that nothing they do reliably changes the outcome. Your dog doesn't need to be in an abusive situation to develop learned helplessness. They just need to be in a situation where no is the most common word they hear. And yes, that good is rare. Watch what happens to a dog's body language after months of this pattern. Their eyes stop seeking yours as often. Their tail wags become smaller, more cautious. They start choosing the safest behavior, which is often doing nothing because doing nothing means you won't say that word. The dog who used to greet you explosively at the door now sits quietly in the corner. You think you've trained calm behavior, But what behavioral scientists see is a dog who has learned that enthusiasm is punished more often than it's celebrated. Number 4. The biological cost of chronic correction. Inside your dog's brain, something is changing at the chemical level. And the research here is both specific and sobering. When dogs live in environments with high rates of non-specific correction, studies measuring their baseline cortisol, the primary stress hormone, show levels that mirror dogs in genuinely stressful situations, like shelter environments or neglectful homes. This isn't dramatic comparison. This is measurable biology. Your dog's adrenal glands respond to the unpredictability of no the same way they'd respond to genuine threat. Because from an evolutionary perspective, unpredictability is threat. Wild canids survive by reading patterns in their environment and their pack. A dog who can't read their pack leader, who can't predict when they'll face correction, exists in a state that biologists describe as chronic low-grade stress. The effects compound. Research on the canine parasympathetic nervous system shows that dogs in this state have difficulty returning to baseline calm after even minor stressors. Their sleep quality decreases. Their immune function shows measurable suppression. Veterinary behaviorists report that dogs with anxiety disorders almost universally come from homes where correction-based communication vastly outweighs reward-based communication. Even when the owners describe themselves as loving and attentive, the cruelty isn't in your intention. The cruelty is in the gap between what you think no teaches and what it actually does to your dog's ability to feel secure in your presence. When researchers study dogs who've developed what's called separation anxiety, they find something revealing. These aren't dogs who love their owners too much. These are dogs who can't predict their owners, who've learned that their human's mood and responses are variable, and who experience the owner's absence as relief from that unpredictability as much as loss of companionship. Number 5. What your dog needs instead of no. The alternative isn't complicated, but it requires you to understand something fundamental about how dogs learn that most training advice skips over. Dogs are brilliant at associating their behavior with immediate consequences, but they're terrible at understanding abstract corrections. Research in animal learning theory shows that dogs need what's called a replacement behavior, something specific they can do instead of the thing you don't want. When your dog jumps on visitors, no tells them nothing. Sit tells them everything. When your dog pulls on the leash, no just adds tension. With me, or stopping until they return to your side teaches the actual skill. Behavioral scientists studying positive reinforcement training have found that dogs trained with specific cues and rewards for alternative behaviors show lower cortisol, higher problem-solving ability, and stronger owner attachment than dogs trained primarily through correction. This isn't permissive parenting for dogs. This is meeting your dog at their actual cognitive capacity. Studies on canine cognition show that dogs understand positional and action-based communication far better than abstract negation. Your dog doesn't have a word in their mental dictionary for don't, but they have robust neural pathways for do this instead. The most effective communicators in dog training research aren't the ones who can deliver the most perfectly timed correction. They're the ones who can see what the dog is trying to do, redirect it toward an acceptable version, and mark that acceptable version with such clarity that the dog knows exactly what earned approval. When you replace no with specific redirection, something shifts in your dog's eyes. The weariness fades. The checking your mood before acting diminishes. They start offering behaviors, trying things, engaging with you as a partner in problem solving rather than a source of unpredictable disapproval. Number 6. The moment everything changes. Watch your dog tomorrow after you've gone a full day without saying no. Watch what happens when you catch them about to do something you don't want, and instead of that sharp correction, you redirect them to something you can say yes to. You'll see their ears change position. Studies on canine body language show that dogs carry tension in their ears, their tails, their shoulder muscles when they're monitoring for correction. And that tension releases when they receive clear, positive information about what to do. Your dog will start checking in with you more frequently, not less, because checking in becomes safe instead of risky. Researchers studying the human-dog bond have found that the strongest relationships aren't built on obedience. They're built on what they call secure-based behavior, where the dog uses the human as a reliable source of information about how to navigate the world. You can't be a secure base when your primary communication is telling your dog what not to do. You become a secure base when your dog learns that looking to you provides answers, not just corrections. The word no doesn't have to disappear from your vocabulary entirely, but when it becomes your rarest word instead of your most common one, when it's reserved for genuine danger rather than inconvenience, Your dog stops flinching at the sound of your voice. The transformation isn't instant, especially if you've spent years building a correction-heavy pattern. But animal behaviorists studying dogs transitioning from punitive to positive training environments report measurable changes in stress indicators within weeks. Your dog's tail position changes. Their eye contact increases. They sleep more deeply. They play more freely. These aren't small shifts. These are the visible signs of a dog who finally understands that their human is safe, predictable, and on their side. Number 7. The trust your dog has been trying to give you. Every morning, your dog wakes up and chooses to trust you again despite yesterday's confusion. Despite the unpredictability, despite not understanding why some days you're patient and other days that same behavior gets them corrected. Research on canine attachment shows that dogs are optimistic by nature when it comes to their humans, that they reset their expectations daily, that they keep trying to decode you even when you've been undecipherable. This isn't unconditional love in the romanticized sense. This is your dog working harder than any animal should have to work to maintain a bond with a creature who speaks a different language. The question isn't whether your dog loves you. The question is whether you're making it easy or hard for them to trust you. When you eliminate no as your default and replace it with clear communication about what you want instead, you're not just training better behaviors. You're telling your dog that you see them trying, that their efforts to understand you matter, that the relationship is a conversation rather than a series of corrections. Studies tracking long-term outcomes for dogs raised in high correction versus high clarity environments show differences that last the dog's entire life. Dogs raised with specific positive communication show lower rates of aggression, lower rates of anxiety disorders, higher resilience to stress, and deeper bonds with their humans. The single word you say most often to your dog is building either a foundation of trust or a foundation of uncertainty. Your dog can't tell you which one you're building, but their body tells you every day. The way they hesitate before approaching you, the way they watch your face for mood shifts, the way they've learned to be small and quiet instead of exuberant and present, or the way they lean into you without fear, the way they offer you their belly, the way they rest their head on your leg with full body relaxation. That's the trust account made visible. And every word you choose either honors what your dog is trying to give you or asks them to try harder to love someone who remains just out of reach. Share this with someone who has a dog. Thanks for watching my video. Subscribe, like, share, and comment. Take care.